Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be continuing our analysis and commentary on the Vladimir Putin speech at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Let's just dive right in.
Schools are oriented towards results, namely successful employment of its graduates, and to achieve that.
Oh, we talk about this all the time. Okay, so again, as most of you know, I'm an IO psychologist. My field, my doctorate is in IO psychology. And I talk about all the time, back when I was a graduate school teacher and everything like that, professor, that academic degrees, academic performance should overlap as much as possible with future job performance. And so the fact that most academic institutions do not look really to see, or they don't really get their funding tied to whether their graduates have future employment and are successful at that future employment, that's just mind-boggling to me. It should be the case that academic performance and job performance are heavily overlapping. And so the fact that Vladimir Putin is talking about something that I would consider an IO psychology concept of using academic performance as a predictor of future job performance. That's awesome to see that IO psychology is becoming a more and more mainstream topic. Even if people don't know the name of our field, they're still using concepts from our field.
First, we need to introduce key performance indicators for our education institutions, and the main indicator.
So key performance indicators, you're going to see in an IO psychology or a business context, KPI. That's what KPI stands for, key performance indicators.
Is the quality of employment for its graduates. And based on this approach, I suggest we form rankings of such education institutions. And secondly, I suggest we should draft a 5-year estimate of needs at the level of our economy, so that we could adapt flexibly to the ever-changing trends and new demands in the labor markets.
I saw this all the time back in school. There'd be a teacher shortage, and it'd be like, right now there's a teacher shortage, or right now there's a nursing shortage. And so people would go into teaching or go into nursing expecting that there would still be a shortage whenever they were done with schooling. But once they were done, 4 years later, 6 years later, 8 years later, a decade later, whoever knows how long it takes them to get done with it, there's no shortage anymore. And so you have to use planning for the future in order to make sure that you guide the right amount of people into the major, so there's actually jobs there at the end. I mean, it doesn't really matter if a person has a nursing degree if there's no nursing jobs available. And so hearing him talk with this future orientation and making sure that they have the right resources necessary to meet future demands of the economy, it makes complete sense. And if you have cohesive governmental structure and business structure, then that's what the government's going to do to help enable that academic institutions can meet the needs of the future economy.
And of course, to our priorities in economic development. So I would like to request the government to come up with proposals on developing such an instrument as a learner's contract. This learner's contract stipulates that the employer sends the employee to retrain or to go through additional training, and instead there is a guarantee that the employee will get a better job. This is a very...
Okay, that's really cool. I talk about this all the time, that people should be lifelong learners. Given the rate of technological advancement, you're either going to need to retrain because parts or fully your job's going to be replaced by AI and automation, or you're just going to have to know how to work with this various technology. I mean, if new technology comes out and you're not getting training on how to use it, then you're not going to be competitive in your field. So the fact that he's talking about this and talking about essentially requiring businesses to have some type of training be available to employees so that they can continue to grow means that he's looking at optimally using the human capital within his nation. And you don't hear these types of comments from Western leaders ever. Like, I've never heard an American leader. I've never heard a Joe Biden or Donald Trump talk in this way and then actually show tangible results. We're seeing in Russia, China, tangible results. Their economy is getting better. Their unemployment is at record lows. They're diversifying their economy. They're growing their economy. It's just across the board, they're successful, and they're actually keeping their word. They're doing the things that they say they're going to do, and they're focusing on the right things. Like what he's talking about right now, this is the right thing to focus on, or at least it is from the perspective of an IO psychologist.
Good stimulus. High quality is required. And we need to increase salaries and wages in order to effect high-quality changes in the labor market. On a separate note, I would like to mention such an important indicator as the minimum wages. Its indexation is continuing at an accelerated pace to board, and we need to increase the gap between the minimum wage and the subsistence level. Starting from January the 1st, 2023, the minimum wages rose by 6.3% to 16,242 rubles starting from January the 1st, 2020.
Okay, to be quite honest, because of the way modern capitalistic economies are, you should just have minimum wage adjustments every year that are pegged to inflation. That makes complete sense to me. But that just, countries won't do that. But it's still good to see that a leader is actually increasing minimum wage. I mean, United States, just people have fought for decades now to increase minimum wage. And like, there's tens of millions of people in the United States who are not making a living wage, who cannot survive right now. They're going homeless. They're going massively in debt. It's just an embarrassment. And if the government actually cared about its people, that type of thing wouldn't be happening. And you see that here's a leader who actually cares about his people and is making sure that doesn't happen, that is raising things like minimum wage. We know that trickle-down economics doesn't work. I mean, I've showed graphs in prior videos about compensation and productivity and how they've been decoupled since the 70s. And so, like, you have to increase people's wages. If giving billionaires more money and more benefits is not increasing the average person's standard of living, you have to increase their wages so that something increases their standard of living, or at least keeps their standard of living the same. I mean, we're seeing in a place like America that life expectancy is going down, and it's actually lower than a place like China, which just now is becoming a high income country, I believe, this year. And so it's just an embarrassment, and it's something that it couldn't happen if you actually had competent people who actually cared about their country in charge. This can only happen if the elites of America actually want the suffering of the people, and that's exactly what you're saying.
There's going to be another indexation by 18.5%. So starting this year, it was 6.3%. Next year, it's going to be 18.5%, which is going to be far superior to the inflation rate and to the rates of income growth in country in general. And this is going to have a positive effect on the income of 4.8 million rubles. And by 2030, minimum wages should rise in nominal terms at least twofold. This is going to be an additional impetus to increasing wages across our countries. We're also expanding measures of social support targeted to civilians, to citizens, especially families with children. And very often such benefits are tied to the income of the person. And should this income rise, albeit negligibly, then the benefits stop. So there is no incentive for the person to search for a better position or for a better salary. We need to change this situation. Government support.
Okay, so he's talking about how there's kind of like cutoff points where if you make a little bit more than this cutoff point, then you lose like all of your social safety net, all of your benefits. And that is how it is in a lot of the Western countries. However, in Vladimir Putin's Russia, it looks like he's going to go more towards a model of you lose a little bit if you gain a little bit more, but no matter what, if you gain a little bit more, it's always better for you compared to what you're losing in terms of social safety net. There's not going to be those like cutoff points where you just lose absolutely everything, because those cutoff points stop people from working to get a living income to make enough money to survive on their own. And so it's kind of hilarious. Everyone calls Vladimir Putin a dictator, an authoritarian, but he's actually, what he's talking about here is making sure that people aren't dependent on the government, because it's not creating these plateaus that are forcing people to continue to be dependent on the government. Otherwise, they lose their benefits. They'll lose their benefits gradually over time when they're making more money. And that's a system that actually encourages productivity compared to the American system, which is encouraging dependence. And so it's hilarious that the American system encourages dependence when America is supposedly the free democracy and Russia is supposedly the authoritarian government that completely controls people's lives. He's talking about doing the complete opposite here. So just that contrast, I love it. Ooh, it makes me ha 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 ha. I shouldn't have done that.
It should not be a replacement for the salary. It should be a complement. And of course, given the low unemployment rate, colleagues, this will drive people to search for jobs. We need to search for such incentives. So I suggest that the child, for families with children under 18 months, and the one-off child benefit should be paid regardless of whether the income of the family has increased or not.
Okay, that's really cool. And I'll leave you there with that insight that people like Vladimir Putin, people like Xi Jinping in China, they're considering our fertility rate is low and it's either dropping or only just stabilizing. We don't have enough people to maintain our country, maintain our economy. We don't know exactly how many people we're going to need given automation AI, but we still want to have a substantial domestic economy, a substantial consumer base. And so here they're talking about providing benefits to make it worthwhile to have children. And you see studies in the West saying that people want to have children, they just can't afford it. And it's because they don't have incentives like this. It's because there's not the opportunity, because it's more beneficial to just make enough money to survive, or that's really all you can do is make just enough money to survive, that you can't afford to have another living being, another human that is dependent on you. And so interesting to see how, in my eyes, Russia and China are doing everything right now, like in terms of supporting families. It's just, it's the exact opposite of what the West tells you about Russia and China. They always say like, oh, they're trying to make people more dependent on the government. And here, like, you see the leader of Russia being like, oh, I really want to increase the family unit. I really want to make sure that they can actually have families and that they can make more money without being dependent on the government. It's like, it's the complete opposite of what the propaganda is telling you. So don't believe the propaganda. Believe your friendly neighborhood Joe Ligato, okay? So that's what I'm going to leave you with today. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please actually like the video and subscribe to our channel for more content. And we're sending out a couple pieces of content every single day at this point. And I love making it. I love interacting with you, even the trolls that I get to argue with. So that's always fun. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.